It was a quiet May morning in 2025 in Ouagadougou when Ibrahim Traoré, 36, was having breakfast with his family at the presidential palace. The young president of Burkina Faso was reviewing national economic reports when his top aide, Moussa Cabaret, rushed into the room, his face tense with urgency. "Mr. President, you need to see this immediately," Moussa said, holding out a tablet. "American President Donald Trump just made some very serious remarks about you in a Fox News interview." Ibrahim frowned and took the tablet. On screen, Trump appeared animated, gesturing wildly as he spoke. "This Ibrahim Traoré from Burkina-whatever- is a complete disaster. A little soldier pretending to be a president. I built a billion-dollar empire while he was still playing with toy soldiers. He should thank me for even knowing his country exists." Trump's words echoed in the dining room like a slap. Ibrahim's wife, Ajara, paused mid-pour with the coffee pot and narrowed her eyes. "How dare he?" she muttered. Ibrahim stayed composed, but his gaze hardened. "Call an emergency meeting in 30 minutes, he told Moussa, "and prepare the press room. We have a response to deliver." As he stood, Ibrahim reflected on the irony. Just 3 years earlier, he had turned Burkina Faso from instability into one of Africa's fastest-growing economies. His social programs had lifted millions from poverty. His education reforms were applauded internationally. Yet to Trump, he was nothing more than a foot soldier from an unknown land. American arrogance had crossed a line. Within 2 hours, the Trump interview had gone viral. Social media erupted. With hashtags like #RespectBurkinaFaso and #TrumpVSAfrica dominating Twitter trends, newsrooms buzzed. The presidential palace in Ouagadougou turned into a command center. Ibrahim was in a high-level emergency cabinet meeting when international responses started arriving. "Mr. President," said Dr. Alan Ouedraogo, the foreign minister, "we've already received solidarity calls from 15 African leaders. President Macron of France has also expressed support." "What about the African Union?" Ibrahim asked. "They've condemned Trump's statements and are demanding a formal apology," Ouedraogo responded. Meanwhile, in Washington, D.C., the White House was scrambling. Secretary of State Antony Blinken was visibly panicked. "Mr. President," he told Trump, "your remarks about Burkina Faso are causing a diplomatic crisis. Ibrahim Traoré is not some nobody. He has real credibility on the world stage." Trump, rarely known to retreat, simply shrugged. "I hadn't even heard of the guy until last week," he said. "What's wrong with telling the truth?" "The issue," Blinken said tightly, "is that he governs a strategic Sahel nation, rich in gold and uranium, with impressive economic stats." Across the Atlantic in Paris, Macron called an urgent cabinet meeting. "This is unacceptable," he told aides. "Traoré is one of Africa's most capable emerging leaders." In Beijing, Chinese officials saw an opening. "If the Americans insult their African allies," said one diplomat, "then we will welcome them." Back in Ouagadougou, Ibrahim finalized his responses sentence that would soon go down in history. At exactly 2 p.m. local time, President Traoré entered the press room in a sharp navy suit. His posture was upright, dignified, carrying the weight not just of Burkina Faso but of an entire continent. More than 80 international reporters had gathered: CNN, BBC, Al Jazeera, France 24. Cameras zoomed in as Ibrahim stepped behind the podium. A hush fell over the room. "Ladies and gentlemen of the press," he began, his voice steady but firm. "This morning, I was informed of President Donald Trump's comments about me. Said I am a little soldier pretending to be a president. That I should be thankful he even knows my country exists." He paused. All eyes were locked on him. "I would like to respond to Mr. Trump with just one observation." The world held its breath. In Washington, Trump watched live from his office. In Paris, Macron paused his day. In Beijing, diplomats leaned closer to their screens. "Mr. Trump," Ibrahim said, eyes fixed on the camera, "you boast about building a billion-dollar empire with $400 million you inherited from your father. I built a prosperous nation, inheriting nothing but poverty and chaos. So tell me which one of us is really the builder?" The silence was earth-shattering. Journalists stared at each other, stunned by the precision and force of that single line. It was elegant, lethal, and utterly unforgettable. Ibrahim had just redefined the global conversation on merit versus privilege. "Thank you very much," he concluded and walked off without taking questions. In the White House, Trump turned visibly pale. For the first time in years, he had no comeback. Within minutes, Ibrahim's quote became the most shared line in social media history. "Trer Destrostrum" hit 10 million mentions in just 1 hour. On CNN, Anderson Cooper went live. In 30 seconds, Ibrahim Traoré just redefined global leadership. "This may be the most powerful political response I've ever seen." On Twitter, Barack Obama posted, "Real leadership is about overcoming adversity, not inheriting wealth." "Respect to President Traoré," Elon Musk tweeted. "Savage level, Ibrahim Traoré." Even Senator Mitt Romney, a Republican, said, "Politics aside, this was a masterclass in leadership." Inside the White House, panic set in. Staffers were scrambling, trying to assemble a response. "Mr. President," began the chief of staff, we need an urgent statement. Social media is on fire." Trump, visibly shaken, muttered, "Who is this guy again?" "Ibrahim Traoré, sir, president of Burkina Faso," an aide replied. Harvard Business Review named him one of the 10 most innovative leaders in the world for 2024. "And why didn't anyone tell me this before?" Trump snapped. In Ouagadougou, Ibrahim sat in his office, watching global reactions with his team. "Mr. President," said Yakuba Sawadogo, the communications aide, "your quote is being translated into 47 languages. It's trending worldwide on every major platform. The numbers are unbelievable," added Moussa Kabare. 3 billion views in just 2 hours. Ibrahim gave a quiet smile. It wasn't about numbers. It was about dignity. Just then, Ajara entered the room with a tray of tea. "I'm proud of you," she said softly. "You defended our honor without losing your calm," as Ibrahim responded. "Is how you confront bullying, with facts, not fury." In the hours following Ibrahim's response, the global political landscape began to shift. The African Union called an emergency session. All 54 African nations released a joint declaration of support. President Ibrahim Traoré spoke for all of us, declared the AU Commission chairman. His dignity honors the entire continent. On Wall Street, something unexpected occurred. Investors began researching Burkina Faso. They discovered an economy growing at 12% annually, vast untapped gold reserves, and a young, educated workforce. Stocks of companies with ties to Burkina Faso rose by 7% in one day. Trump may have unintentionally given Burkina Faso the best global PR campaign of the decade, a Bloomberg analyst commented. At the White House, Trump finally attempted damage control. He tweeted, "Ibrahim Traoré is a fantastic leader. Everyone knows that. I always said Burkina Faso was an amazing country. Fake news media just twists my words." The tweet was instantly mocked. "When you're forced to praise the man who just destroyed you," tweeted Stephen Colbert, "you've definitely lost." In Burkina Faso, celebrations erupted across the country. Youth danced in the streets of Ouagadougou, chanting, "Our president showed the world who we are." At the U.S. Embassy, security was increased, not due to threats, but because of crowds lining up to take selfies in front of the gates. "We just want to show we're friends with Americans," said one student, "but we also expect respect." Across the U.S., universities extended invitations to Ibrahim. Harvard offered him an honorary professorship. Yale proposed an exchange program with Burkina universities. "We want to learn from your experience in national transformation," said the president of Columbia University. Ibrahim, though honored, remained focused. Burkina Faso comes first. The world can wait. Within a week of that now historic moment, global narratives about leadership shifted. International magazine covers splashed his photo. Time named him Person of the Week, with the headline, "The Leader Who Redefined Power." The article detailed how Ibrahim had reduced poverty by 40% in 3 years, doubled GDP per capita eradicated, malaria in 15 regions, trained 500,000 youth through technical education programs in France. Macron convened a special session on redefining partnerships with Africa. "We must accept that a new generation of African leaders is rising," he told his aides. Ibrahim Traoré is the face of this change. They are no longer junior partners. China moved fast. Xi Jinping announced a $5 billion investment package for Burkina Faso, focused on tech and infrastructure. China respects visionary leaders, wherever they emerge, declared the Chinese ambassador to Ouagadougou. Even Russia joined in. Vladimir Putin, in a televised interview, said, "President Traoré has shown what real leadership under pressure looks like. Russia is ready to partner with nations that defend their dignity." Back in Burkina Faso, the impact was visible immediately. International tourists began pouring in, eager to see the nation of the president who had publicly humbled Trump. Hotels in Ouagadougou were booked out. Travel agencies offered special tours. Explore the land of Africa's bravest leader. Ibrahim remained grounded. "Our mission is the same," he told his ministers. "Millions still need to be lifted out of poverty." Fatima Sawadogo, the economy minister, shared an update. "Mr. President, in the past 48 hours alone, we've received $15 billion in investment offers. We'll evaluate each proposal carefully," Ibrahim replied. "We're not here to grow fast. We're here to grow well." His humility stood in stark contrast to the arrogance he had faced. 2 weeks after being publicly outclassed, Trump could no longer ignore the damage. His approval ratings had dropped 8 points. Even conservative media began questioning his judgment. In a desperate move, Trump called a press conference. "I'm going to show who's boss in this relationship," he told aides who exchanged anxious glances. At the podium, Trump lashed out, "Burkina Faso is a small, economically irrelevant country. I move more money in a day than they do in a year." But this time, reporters came armed with facts. "Mr. President," asked a CNN journalist, "Burkina Faso's economy is growing at 12% annually, 3 times faster than the U.S. How do you explain that?" Trump grew visibly irritated. "Fake numbers? Fake news?" "The numbers are from the World Bank, sir," the reporter replied. In Ouagadougou, Ibrahim watched the scene with mild amusement. "He never learns," he said to Ajara. "The more he attacks, the more he exposes himself." Later, Ibrahim responded with a single tweet. "Numbers speak louder than shouting. Burkina Faso is growing at 12% by building schools and hospitals. Others build walls and tweet." Within an hour, the tweet was shared 2 million times. Even Republican senators began distancing themselves from Trump. "This is embarrassing," said one from Texas. "This young African is making our president look like a brat." On Fox News, conservative anchors finally conceded, "Trump needs to stop. Ibrahim Traoré is not someone to mess with." Winning every round. Host Tucker Carlson put it bluntly, "Gentlemen, when you're losing to a guy from Africa no one had heard of a month ago, maybe it's time to rethink your strategy." Trump's attempts to fight back had only dug him deeper. 1 month after the controversy erupted, something unexpected happened. The U.S. Congress, in a rare bipartisan move, formally invited Ibrahim Traoré to address a joint session. It was a historic honor, rarely extended to African leaders. Trump was furious, but he couldn't stop it. "This is an insult to the presidency," he roared in the Oval Office. "How can they let that brat speak in my Congress?" But Republican leadership was split. "Mr. President," said the Senate Majority Leader, "this invitation has the support of 78% of Congress. Opposing it would be political suicide." The invitation was delivered to Ibrahim through David Miller, the U.S. ambassador to Ouagadougou. President Traoré Miller said, "This is an extraordinary honor. Only 12 African leaders have ever addressed the U.S. Congress." Ibrahim took time to think. Accepting would elevate him as a global statesman, but it also meant leaving Burkina Faso during a critical period. "What do you think?" he asked Ajara. "It's an opportunity," she replied, "but only if you go on your terms." Ibrahim agreed to go with conditions. "I will visit the United States," he told the ambassador, "but I will also meet African-American communities, students, and grassroots organizations. I want to see the real America, not just Washington." The news that Ibrahim had accepted sparked a global media storm. TV networks announced special live coverage. The White House tried to spin it. "It's just a routine diplomatic speech," but no one believed that. This was the moment when a young African leader would stand at the epicenter of American power and speak as an equal. In the streets, of Ouagadougou, crowds celebrated. "Our president will show the world who we are," said a street vendor. "Trump created a monster," joked a college student. But Ibrahim remained grounded. "I'm not going as a conqueror," he said. "I'm going as a bridge builder." On a chilly May morning, Ibrahim Traoré landed in the U.S. for the first time. Washington, D.C.'s airport was packed with journalists and supporters. Hundreds from the African diaspora had arrived, waving Burkina Faso flags. "Speaks for all of us," said a Senegalese nurse. "At last, someone truly represents us." Trump refused to attend the official reception, but Congress organized grand ceremonies nonetheless. The day before the speech, Ibrahim visited Howard University, a historically black institution. He was received like a hero. "You are the bridge between Africa and America," he told the students. "Never forget your roots." On the morning of the speech, Washington was packed. Senators, Congress members from both parties, and global media waited anxiously. Even Trump, begrudgingly, appeared in the presidential gallery. As Ibrahim stepped to the congressional lectern, a complete hush fell over the room. "Honorable members of Congress," he began, "I stand before you not as a subject, but as a partner, not to beg for help, but to offer cooperation." For 45 minutes, Ibrahim laid out a compelling vision for a self-sufficient, dignified Africa. "Burkina Faso doesn't want handouts. We want investment. We don't need saviors. We need partners who respect us." He cited 2 million new jobs, 1,200 schools built solar energy programs, bringing light to remote areas. "We achieved this with our own resources, our own will, and our dignity." Then came the climax. He turned his gaze toward Trump. "To President Trump," he said, "I say this. Greatness is not measured by inherited wealth, but by the legacy you leave behind. And Mr. President, you still have time to choose your legacy." The room erupted in a standing ovation. Even Republicans rose to applaud. Trump remained seated, his face tight with discomfort. The speech would go down as one of the most powerful ever delivered in the halls of Congress. 6 months later, Ibrahim was back in Ouagadougou, but the world had changed forever. His response to Trump had become required reading in diplomacy schools. Harvard launched the Ibrahim Traoré Young Leadership Prize, awarded annually to emerging leaders. The impact on Burkina Faso was seismic: $25 billion in foreign investment. Apple announced a factory in Ouagadougou, Google built a research hub, Microsoft launched youth tech training programs. "I never thought one sentence could change so much," Ibrahim told Ajara, as they looked over the construction of the new technology university. "It wasn't the sentence," she smiled. "It was your courage to speak the truth." Meanwhile, a politically weakened Trump made one last, desperate move. In an interview, he said, "I always knew Ibrahim was special. I'm the one who discovered him for the world." The world laughed. Even his loyalists abandoned the narrative. In Africa, Ibrahim had become a symbol of a new generation. Young politicians in Ghana, Senegal, Rwanda, and Kenya were now embracing his model: education, merit, dignity. The Traoré generation was here. The World Bank published a landmark report, The Burkina Faso Miracle: How One Nation Transformed Its Economy in 3 years. It became a global reference for sustainable development. Ibrahim was named Special Advisor to the UN on African Development. One quiet evening, walking through the palace gardens, Ibrahim reflected on it all. At 36, he had become a global icon, but his greatest joy remained at home: extreme poverty eradicated. 100% school enrollment, life expectancy increased by 8 years, Daddy. His 9-year-old daughter said, "You're famous all over the world." Ibrahim hugged her gently. "I'm not famous, my love. I'm useful. And being useful is far better than being famous." That single sentence, the one that silenced Trump, had ended up building something far greater: a new model of leadership, based on merit, dignity, and the courage to speak truth to power.